Welcome back to another episode. We are not called Young Bucks, unfortunately, at the moment. We were hit with a cease and desist for that word. So we've rebranded. It's now called Face Up. The idea behind it is kind of facing up to life's truths. So today we're joined with Liam Malone. Liam is a former New Zealand para-athlete. He represented New Zealand at the 2016 Summer Paralympics in Rio de Janeiro, where he won gold medals in the men's 200 metres, 400 metres, and a silver medal in the men's 100 metres. Following his retirement from athletics in 2018, Liam began working in artificial intelligence startup Soul Machines. The company is led by Oscar Award winner Dr. Mark Sager. After moving on from Soul Machines, Liam moved to the UK, where he followed his passion of becoming a stand-up comedian. That's right.
Yeah, fast road to homelessness, which is why I'm home. Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess we'll start off with a round of quick-fire questions. It's our newest thing that we're adding into it. Don't think too hard about the questions. Just fire off what's the first thing that comes to mind. So, get into it. Name one moment that changed your life forever.
Legs being chopped off, obviously.
That would be...
Definitely would change your life.
Definitely be...
for the better, I might add.
For the better.
Yep.
Have you ever used recreational drugs?
Yep.
Biggest issue facing New Zealand youth today?
Potentially increasing barriers to opportunity, but I'd probably say like a failing of the educational system.
Mm-hmm. When was the last time you cried, and what was it about?
I cried last weekend running a half marathon because I pushed myself way too hard, and I genuinely thought that I might not make it. Like I was running really fast, but in the last 2K I was just pushing myself that hard that I sort of began to form tears in my eyes and cry.
That's good.
I was just struggling so much.
Good.
I definitely cried after I did a half marathon. I was so unfit.
What was the last thing you gave up on and didn't see through?
That's a really good question. Probably something like minuscule, like a diet or something, like trying to do like a keto diet for a month.
Keto diet.
Yeah, probably got keto flu and gave up on it.
Yeah. Are you happy right now?
I'm very happy right now.
Bit dusty?
Yeah, I'm very hungover.
Good night.
But I'm happy to be alive.
Good night at the UFC last night.
Yeah, the UFC was phenomenal. The boys did well. Got the three-peat.
Yes. Would you rather be hated or forgotten?
I don't really care about being known, so I'm happy to go with forgotten.
When was the last time you truly opened up to someone? Who was it?
I'm happy to be open to like most people, so I'm not like a closed book.
When was the last time you let someone down? In a big way, or you missed a coffee date?
Pretty good with being on time and everything.
20 minutes early today. So
20 minutes early. Let someone down. I don't know. I can't remember. Someone might be able to hold me to account with something.
I'm sure someone will comment the last time you let them down. Who is someone you'll never forget?
Oscar Pistorius, talking to him. Yeah. That was interesting.
Big conversation you had with him?
Yeah, I talked to him a number of times right before he went to prison on Skype. So
Jesus.
Yeah, that was like a unique...
About the sports industry or about life?
Yeah, not about murder, sadly. He gave me a ton of life advice, which was ironic.
Was that proven that he did that?
Yeah, he's in prison.
He's in prison.
Oh, like it was like proven.
Yeah.
Right.
Beyond...
It was a big story, that one. I remember when I was young, I got on TV, and I didn't really understand it at the time, but
And then my mum died when I was 18. Won't forget. Yeah, cool.
So I guess we'll kind of start off with the reason that most people know you, and that's the sports industry. Obviously being an Olympic runner, and we got a few questions around that. Was you're not doing a lot of running these days. You're doing a lot of long distance running, but not your usual 100 meters and stuff. When was the last time you went running? What was the reason behind that? Was it a mental thing?
I run every day. Mm-hmm. So like I ran the half marathon on the weekend at 1:24. Now I'm aiming for 1:15, but I think I could go under 1:10, which is sort of put me in like the elite part of the world for running a half marathon. Yeah. So I run every day. And the reason is just like optimizing for health. I feel like it's like if you can optimize your biological body, then like everything else in life is pretty smooth sailing.
Would you ever go back to the Olympics
No.
to do...
No way.
Not to do 100 or 200?
Wouldn't do anything.
You
I wouldn't do
you wouldn't
anything.
even do half?
Nope.
Even
I
if
don't
you're,
think.
like, the
I
fastest?
think the Olympics, Paralympics, traditional sports, they got like a pretty good chance of dying in the next century. They're just like if you go to the UFC,
Why
you
would
went to
you
the
say
UFC because they're not interesting. They got too many bureaucratic rules. They have this massive problem with doping, which is never really addressed or solved. They have a bad user experience. Like the entertainment side of the Olympics is not that good. So either they change, right, to sort of meet the new world and how things are consumed, or they don't. But
how would they shape it up? How would they shake it up? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I could imagine a private version of the Olympics emerging where people potentially are allowed to take, performance enhancing drugs because people take performance enhancing drugs as it is anyway. And that might be more popular. Like it might just be modeled more like the UFC or a private organization, something like the NBA. Because if you look at those two, they're probably the most successful.
Going to UFC, that was just on this weekend. Obviously, New Zealand got the 3-peat in the UFC.
Yeah, phenomenal.
I think we got another 2 or 3 in the local national title. I think City Kickboxing won 6 out of 6 they had over the weekend.
On Friday.
On Friday, yeah. Okay, yeah. So they won a few more then. The rise of Brad, Izzy, Kai, these guys coming through, what's that doing for New Zealand sports?
Well,
how is that changing?
It's really fascinating because I was at the Hellbergs the other night and I was with a bunch of, not elderly, but I was with a bunch of older folks who I would imagine are relatively wealthy and perhaps fund some more of the traditional sports through like philanthropic efforts. And we had this debate about Israel Adesanya winning the Supreme Award. And I said he should absolutely win the Supreme Award, and they obviously said netball should win the Supreme Award, and the outcome was that netball won, but the debate was that the UFC is not a real sport. And I found that so fascinating, given that Israel Adesanya, like if you do the math, is like arguably our biggest athlete ever on a global stage. And then you argue that what City Kickboxing have achieved, given that they haven't had the traditional funding models that the Olympic sports and rugby and netball have had, is a much greater challenge. Like my opinion is like All Blacks and netball should almost be default world champions. Like netball's a Commonwealth sport. The UFC, every major country on earth has fighters. Not every major country on earth has netball players. So when you see people like Israel Adesanya on the world stage, I think it does like a massive amount of good for for up and coming New Zealand young people who want to take it like a different path and can see that they forge their own way and be themselves. Because Izzy's like himself. If you saw his speech at the Hellberg Awards, it was phenomenal. So I think all those guys, Kai, Brad, Dan Hooker, Eugene, City Kickboxing, I think it's like a different narrative almost for New Zealand sports.
How do you not lose yourself when you get to that level of elite sportsmanship, business, anything? We see so many athletes take Oscar for an example, right? Got to that point. Probably a lot of it got to his head a little bit, and he probably thought he was
maybe.
Yeah,
I don't
you know
know
what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's
Trained his whole life to run when a gun goes off.
Yeah.
In
yeah.
that situation.
I mean,
But,
there's a handful of athletes.
Conor
that we could
McGregor,
name. Conor
yeah.
McGregor, all these guys, and it gets to their head, and it becomes a social play.
yeah, perhaps. I mean, you don't really know what actually goes on because obviously the media perpetuates the most extreme version of every story for clicks. So that's like a hard thing. Look, I couldn't even honestly say because the likes of Conor McGregor and Israel Adesanya and Dan Hooker and those guys, that's far above whatever I achieved. And I've never really cared about social currency. So the whole losing yourself thing really hasn't been like that. Really hasn't been. I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't know. I guess surrounding yourself with the right people have good personal incentives. But if you make hundreds of millions of dollars, like, you must feel like you can do whatever you want, right?
You might,
You would.
yeah,
You would
you
have to.
100% would, right? You'd be like, I'm unstoppable. Like, I can buy what I
Perhaps.
want, I can do what I
Perhaps.
want.
But I also think like, it's this. If you have heaps of money in the bank, like I to some degree like don't understand how people like blow out and fuck up really bad, just because it's like it's not that money's the problem, it's that your lack of discipline's the problem. It's like if you have a ton of food in the pantry, just don't eat it. Just leave it alone, you know? So I don't really get the whole like money is bad for people type
Interesting.
of thing.
So it's
that-
not a resource thing.
that
it's a
fame is
discipline
bad
thing.
for people. I think that all of those things will probably just make you more of who you are potentially. I don't know. We all have pitfalls and everything.
Yeah.
I don't have any answers for anyone.
Our last
Just
guest-
be yourself.
One of our last guests, episode 4, Alistair, he said, money brings out your true self. And I think that's probably one of the biggest statements we've probably had on the show. Like, money brings out your true self. What you do with your money when you're at that level brings out your true self.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that.
Where did your, that's an interesting one. It's not about the resource you have, it's the discipline you have to use the resource you've got.
Yeah.
Right? So you could have $1, but if you've got great discipline, that could probably stretch a lot further than someone who's got $10 but doesn't have any discipline.
Right. I mean, there's just a lot of vices in the world where you can indulge, and it's not just financial, it's not just food, it's just like on every front,
Totally.
right? So if you don't have the discipline to manage those things, then your life's just going
What
to
would
be
you say-
chaotic and out of control.
What would you say your vices have been? Or were or
Vices?
are?
I don't really have like a lot of vices now. Like I'd say my vice now is running. Like I've become
Wow.
quite obsessed with long distance running. I was next month going to do what's called a calendar month where I run a kilometer for every
Oh, wow.
like date. So on the first I run 1,
Oh, yeah.
second day I run 2, and then the last week you're running more than a half marathon every day. But I'm going to postpone it because I'm now doing a more rigid training scheme. But now for me, I feel like that's vice, and then stand up comedy as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker.
Yeah.
I don't do recreational drugs, really at all.
Yeah.
So
Where did that discipline where did the discipline come from?
it's not even discipline. It's just like I just don't enjoy. Like I've made some real bad mistakes. When I was 19, I fucked up pretty bad. I drunk drove, crashed my truck off a bank. I never even really enjoyed drinking that much. So that's when I got into running. It's just really about optimizing for what you find to be fun, And so for me, it's easy. But for a lot of people who either like have a genetic predisposition to addiction, that makes like obviously recreational drugs and alcohol, gambling a problem. If you have a predisposition to wanting to be popular, then you end up making perhaps mistakes on like a social currency level. It's just all of those things. If you ever, so I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe it's just I'm boring. I don't know.
So you're enjoying running a lot now, long distance. What are 2 other things you're really enjoying putting your time to?
More recently, I would have said I'm building a house down in Nelson, and that's actually become more challenging than I would have thought. But running's been a big one. That's more recent. Stand up would be up there, and I probably don't have anything else. Like I'm a pretty simple guy, if that makes sense. Yeah.
True.
From
I'm not
Nelson?
like, yeah,
Small
I'm
town
not,
boy.
it's not like I'm
Doesn't-
doing like all these different
Yeah.
things, I'm like, I'm just a regular person.
Yeah,
Everyone's
yeah.
just I don't know.
It's interesting you've got that.
My opinion is to figure out how to enjoy what you do, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
you're not distracted.
It's interesting you got that mindset though, right? Because you've gone from small town Nelson through all the adversity and everything that's happened to on the Olympic stage to New Zealand's top sportsman, potentially one of the best runners we've had in very, 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 very long time. Back to kind of this level, and you're still in the mindset of I'm grateful to be alive. I'm happy to be where I am. I'm very content in what I'm doing. a lot of people that probably go through that kind of ups and downs at such a young age, because you're only 20.
I'm 26.
26, and you've gone from small town Nelson, Olympic
Yeah,
medalist,
but my
back to
opinion
this,
is like it's never about those outcomes. It was really about optimizing for enjoying what you're doing at that point in time, and like I know what those things are, and so whatever that perception is, on the outside isn't really of a concern to me as much as I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So if like you like make reference to the Paralympic stage or whatever, it's not why I would do it.
Do you hate people referring to you like that? Being like, oh, this is Liam, the Paralympian. Well, not hate, but
I feel like
are you over it?
Yeah, to a degree, but you just like it feels like it puts you within like this framework for which you may like a unconscious, not like a subconscious level, like may restrict you from going and doing something else. Like there's loads of things I want to do in life, so. I
guess one
I've like never looked forward to titles. Like I remember when I was like just starting running and someone referred to me, or they asked me how I felt about being called the Kiwi Blade Runner. And I was like, this is when I just started. I'm like, I do not want to be called the Kiwi Blade Runner. I just want to be called Liam. Like this is only really a stepping stone for other things that I'm going to go and do. And I get stuck with the title anyway, and that's how people view me. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
I guess one good example of that was today when we caught up just for a drink down there, a juice cleanse and a coffee. I was doing a bit of imagery for our Instagram, and I wrote Liam Malone, Paralympic athlete and comedian. I was like, is this okay? And you're like, well, I don't mind it, but I'd rather be as himself, And is that a lot of stuff you have to go through daily where it's just... Do
you still get people on the street going, oh, that's Liam, the Blade
Runner?
No,
man. Like, I've never... People's mums. Or like, maybe someone's grandma might come up to me and say, like, I wish my grandson was like you or something. Yeah. That's about as... and that's the worst part. Maybe that's why I dislike it. It's like you got the MMA fighters who have, like, the coolest fans in the world. I got people's grandmothers coming up to me. Yeah, and you're like, oh, Jesus.
Whatever you're into, right?
Yeah, whatever you're into. It's a weird audience to have. So maybe from that, I'm not into it. But yeah, no, none of that ever happens, you know? Yeah. It's like I'm not a celebrity or anything. Yeah, my mates keep me down to earth by ripping me out and calling me a micro celebrity and whatever, and that's just, fake influencer. Yeah, exactly. Don't even call. I'm not. I don't even. Those people kill me.
When was the last time you did a sponsored post on Instagram? Never.
Don't even know if I have. Yeah. Maybe one, and I wanted to kill myself. So yeah.
Is that it? That's just you don't want to be that guy.
Dude, these influencers, man, they're like, hey, I got a life update. I'm waiting for someone to tell me they got cancer. Next thing they go into like a Sony advertisement. I'm like, crazy, what is going on? Yeah, and like obviously there's some people who are on the internet who I find to be fascinating. Ross Edgley, David Goggins, people who do real things. And then there's people who are literally just doing stuff to trade on some sort of social currency to sell whatever. And it's so inauthentic. I just don't want to see it. I don't want to see it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you were, you talked a lot about optimizing life, I guess. Optimizing your body, optimizing what you're doing to make it the most enjoyable it can be. What does that actually mean? Break down what you mean by optimizing. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, well, it just means like placing values on certain things. So like if you placed a value on your health or whatever, just making sure that you're maximizing whatever that value is. So finances, obviously, it'd be like short-term suffering, long-term game. Save money now, have more money later on. Health, fast now, short-term suffering, longevity, live longer, higher quality of life. Surround yourself with good people now, fewer people, I don't know, better outcomes. It's just all of those things.
If you could go back to 18-year-old Liam, what would you put your value on then? What would you say, this is the one thing I'm putting my value on, and that's what I'm putting first?
Hard work.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's all that I think. If you want to do anything, it's just hard work, right? Like the world will mold around you, I think, if you work really hard at something. I don't think it really matters what it is. Like, I never enjoyed sprinting. I never did it because I was like, I want to be Paralympic gold medalist. I did it because I needed structure and a challenge, and without it, I was failing and drunk drove and everything. So,
when did you kind of know that you're like, shit, I'm pretty good at this?
I didn't up until I won.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't.
Surely you
up
must
until
have
I won.
knowing. We've selected you to go to the Paralympics.
Yeah, of
you've
course. So there's obviously
time.
those indicators that you measure, and there's things in training that you measure. But like a race is so definitive in the outcome. Like you either win or you lose. It's like there's a first place and then there's the
7 other losers.
Then there's 7 other losers,
Yeah.
and so unless you win, I don't know if you're good at it.
Because you're
like winning's obviously something you have to value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're in a different class to Oscar Pistorius, right?
No, same.
Same
I was literally born with the same condition, legs
Ah.
amputated at the same age, etc., etc.
And that race, sorry, I don't follow Olympic sports at all.
Neither do I. So no offense taken.
That race where you won the gold, was he in that race? Or he wasn't
No,
racing
he
at
was
that
in
time?
prison.
Oh, was he in prison at that
Yeah.
time?
Yeah,
He was
Oh, see, I'm so
yeah,
out of
when I
loop
was
with when
young,
he
yeah.
went.
He could have been running. I don't know.
Oh, God.
Running from the law,
Running
maybe.
from
Yeah,
the-
okay,
made a
I'm
few bad
so out of the
decisions
loop.
in the lead up.
Wow.
Yeah, no. Strangely though, like I always had imagined, because like, obviously you grow up as like a young guy and you go to school and like there's like fights at school and like I never was in any fights or
Yeah.
anything, but I had imagined like when I was younger, when I was like 16, 17, like if there was one person that I'd like to have like a fight against, it'd be Oscar Pistorius.
Really?
Now, obviously not.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to have some work from prison,
Yeah,
but
he's pretty hardened criminal now.
but yeah, no. So I went to the games after Oscar went. So Oscar
Right.
had set all the world records at the previous ones, and then I went in 2016. He wasn't there, and I broke all his records. So,
Do you still hold him?
well, the reason I left the Paralympics was because they sort of took this like anti-technological stance towards how like your blades could be used, etc. So they reset all the records. So they were all wiped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's water off the back. It doesn't bother me at all.
You broke it at the time, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
snapping.
So I'm going to touch on a new something here. So in an article I was reading the other day, you admitted smoking recreational marijuana, I think it was.
What are you, 90?
We're going to talk about that stuff.
Recreational.
Marijuana?
No, you're smoking
Yeah.
dope.
Yeah. Sure.
With other Olympic athletes and things like this.
Mm.
What can you tell us about this? You can't tell us who it is, obviously.
No, and I wouldn't. I think it's like not fair.
Yeah, not fair at all.
Yeah.
But is it a common thing? Like,
No, I wouldn't say so.
'Cause
At all.
it-
But I mean,
it's-
I think like you guys are amongst like really extraordinarily successful people. I would place the same probability of those people that doing recreational drugs across all facets of successful people.
that's
including
interesting
athletes.
because I would say 90% of the people I hang out with smoke recreational drugs.
All right, okay, no
probably
way
marijuana.
then. No way.
Yeah.
Maybe, no way. There's no way that it'd be that high.
Interesting.
No. And it's not like a constant, right? They're not
Yeah,
like a habitual thing. It's
exactly.
like if you're at a festival or something, you
Yeah.
might do it. I don't smoke weed almost at all. Like I might do it at a concert or something, 3 times a year, 4 times a year. But yeah, when I was younger, when I was maybe 15 to 19,
Loved it.
we'd get pretty ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember one of the most devastating events to ever happen in my life was like when my mum was chronically ill right before she died. She was at home and I had like 2 or 3 ounces of weed and I walked in the back door thinking she'd be in the kitchen, and I walked into the laundry and my mum just saw me with these like ounces of cannabis and it just broke her heart. And of course it's like hard to come back from your mum dying and being in this like paranoid state that your son's going to turn out to be like a drug dealing failure.
Yeah.
So she probably died thinking like, oh, Liam's going to turn out to be a complete miss.
Yeah.
Did that change your mindset then? Were you like, shit, I need to snap out of this, or not
I don't
really?
know, it's not about snapping out of anything. I mean, I had some like challenges going on then, obviously she was sick, but I think as you guys would know, when it comes to recreational cannabis or whatever,
mean?
it's like food. It's going
I'm an
back
angel
to
child.
Yeah.
It's discipline. You don't have
Yeah.
to do everything all the time. And I think most successful people, how they are is how they are. So I think like across a population, you're going to have a percentage of people, no matter what, who indulge and become addicted to gambling, alcohol, cannabis, methamphetamine, regardless. And so for successful people, I feel like it's not like a mindset shift or anything. It's just like you work really hard, you do what you do, and at like some point in time, you're allowed to enjoy yourself. I don't think that's like a bad thing.
So there's the conversation obviously about legalizing medicinal marijuana and recreational marijuana. Is that a conversation that, say, our age group should be having, or is it a conversation that that the adults, I say that as I'm 18 or you're a bit older, is that something where the 45 to 60s should be having a conversation and then letting us hear what they've come up with, or should it be like a?
I feel like we know what they've come. I know what they've
right?
come up with. Right.
I mean, a lot of the older folk used to smoke marijuana back in their day.
Sure.
So is it? Where's your kind of stance on it?
My stance is like, how do you minimize the negative externalities that arise from the market, right? And we still have a market. We have a black market where cannabis is supplied and consumed, and we know what those externalities are. Where people who do have like habituated, like addiction to cannabis, whether you can become like clinically addicted is debated. I think you guys probably have friends. I have friends that have probably been affected from too much cannabis consumption in the same way that we have friends that have been affected by too much alcohol consumption or cigarettes or whatever.
I've been affected by all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I know firsthand.
Yeah,
all of them.
which is true. Which is true.
Yeah,
So, I mean, like, if
nothing
it's
to
got to be
hide.
one, there's probably going to be more.
Totally.
So I think the question comes back to is just like, how do you, in what market do you minimize those externalities while maximizing the freedoms of individuals to choose how they live their lives? Like, I think that's like a really important thing for a society is to like maximize freedoms as long as they don't harm other people. So that's something that like I'm concerned about, I guess, from like a political standpoint. I don't like really care too much for politics, but I think maximizing freedoms for individuals when it doesn't cause harm is like it's an important thing.
So it's a personal decision.
Yeah, it should be a personal decision. I mean, the data's out there that me consuming cannabis is not really going to lead to the harm of other people. In a black market, it does tend to, because you're put into a market where the suppliers typically have bad incentives. So like people like gangs, etc., have the incentive to maximize profits, etc. So they'll push you on to harder things. Like that's undoubtable, and that's probably why historically it's had that gateway drug attached to it, the term. But I think that's a conversation that young people should absolutely be having. I just think it's a debate of truth, not like a debate of age or anything like that.
Yeah, I personally, I'm in the same boat. I'm fully for legalizing recreational on the basis on two fronts. One, it should be that freedom of choice to live your life as long as you're not putting others in a harmful place. So me sitting at home smoking a joint isn't putting you at harm at your house, is it really? Unless I decide to go and do something stupid, but that's another discussion. And second, it's a safety thing. If it's, like you said, if it's legalized in a way that maximizes safety for users, I'm all for that.
Yeah,
because people are going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
I'd rather you know that you're buying it from a safe source than go buy it from someone dodgy and it be laced with something you don't know's in there, right?
Yeah,
and everybody's had that experience, and it's
I
not
couldn't
a great
agree
experience.
more. But have you guys spent much time in California or the States?
I haven't been. I've been to San Francisco.
Yeah, I see. Like, I look at that, I'm like, man, is that better than a black market? Like, it seems like there's a lot of bad incentives there, where the market probably has too much power for profit.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if the system's structured in a way that it was built to succeed, though.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. Who knows what happens with it? I don't think it's going to get legalized in the next election.
Really?
Nah, no way.
I do.
You do?
I really do.
Maybe I hang out with too many old people. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it's going to be really close.
It'll be close. I reckon it'll be real close.
I think there's a generational shift that's accepting the use of marijuana a lot more. Our generation is... It's a lot. You can walk down the street and someone's smoking a joint, no one even blinks an eye.
Sure.
You did that 10 years ago, and it's probably a little bit different.
Sure.
And you even see it now with police. Police are getting lighter and lighter on it. We'll give you a warning. Hey, don't do that. We'll just take this and you can go home. I think there's a real shift coming. I hope it does.
I don't even think the shift is limited to marijuana. I think the shift there's a lot of recreational drugs that people are getting into. Like over summer when you go to festivals, 80% of the people are either high or just pinging off their fucking head.
Everyone is on gear. It's crazy. And you go, well, how
like
effective is it is insane,
because it's
right?
actually that compared to weed is like disgustingly bad for you.
Yeah. Well, I think
like the amount of consumption
it's
these young people are taking.
It is insane.
I went to town last Friday night. And probably everybody that I bumped into, talked to, old friends, new friends, pupils, massive.
Yeah.
And that's just
so
Friday
insane.
night.
They're gnawing, they're chewing their mouth off. It's crazy.
On that, because I know, I think it was Rhythm Vines or Bay Dreams got a bit of slack about this. Would you be for or against, we know at festivals kids are going to take MD. They're going to get it in. They're going to find it. Right? Are we for testing? And then based on what's in it, you tell the young person and then give it back and they choose whether to take it or give it back to you? Or are we against that because it's kind of not encouraging, but it's allowing use of...
Yeah, I genuinely think that's a good idea. Like in an open market, in a white market, it's really about giving individuals in anything, if you're going to buy anything, the maximum amount of information so that they can make the correct decision. So I think that is a good thing. So I think who stopped it? Like it was NZ First or someone. They were
somebody was
it.
really.
I don't
against
know.
it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I do too, because
it's just insane. Like either the old people are that out of touch, they don't know how prevalent and normalized taking gear is, or I just don't know. I mean, I don't have any answers either. But it just seems crazy to me. Like you're bang on the money. Yeah. Just how much people are doing it and how much of it
and how cheap it is actually.
It's insane. I don't get where it's coming from.
I've got friends. I won't name anybody, but I've got friends that are doing it 3-4 times a week, every week, and they've done it for a year. And it's just that party vibe. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, midweek, Tuesday, or whatever. It's really bad. And from a personal experience, like I went through a phase, I don't really care, like you, open book. I went through a phase where it was like all the time. And you come out of it, and when you finally step back, you're like,
and that's predominantly MDMA?
Everything.
Oh, everything.
Yeah, I personally went through a period where it was like everything. Drunk every night, smoked dope every night, MD like 3 times a week.
Yeah, you know what though? Like if you look back at the 70s and the 80s, I feel like every generation just does. I
think kind of a cycle.
I wonder like partly either there is just more on the market, but also might be like we've come to a point where we are just
drugs though. Like was that more your LSD, your mushrooms, your
I think it was
natural?
more psychedelics.
Yeah, and now it's more
crazy
of the,
individuals.
Now it's more of the we've got the boom boom music. Everyone just wants
the party drugs. Who knows? I don't know.
D&B on Georgie FM.
Just cranking.
And it's interesting because I think with the rise of, we talked about before, like Joe Rogan podcast, he smokes weed on stream, he talks about DMT, he talks about LSD, mushrooms, and he's a massive fan of all of this shit.
Tim Ferriss is another example, and they, he's, I think, partnered with Johns Hopkins University, and they've raised like a $16 million fund to do, medical research and treating PTSD, depression with mushrooms and I think potentially MDMA as well, like using and Johns Hopkins is like one of the best medical universities in the world. Yeah. So there's that like transitional sort of, or that transition both in academics as well. Same with cannabis, where like medicinally now they're looking at those properties where that was previously banned because of legalities with it being consumed by the public. And so now those positive aspects of those drugs are being talked about, which is probably changing public opinion a little bit. I mean, I feel like young people get bought up. So I'm so hungover. No. This is me trying to think right now is killing me. But I feel like you grow up and young people are like, cannabis is bad. It's going to melt your brain. If you do cannabis, you're a complete idiot type of thing. Yeah. And then you hit 18. I think that's a dangerous message to put out because young people are going to try it. And then they're like, we've been tricked. Yeah. They tricked us. It's nowhere near as bad as alcohol.
Which means
right?
MD must be fine and this must be fine.
So you start questioning all of it. You start questioning all of it. So I think the messaging around how we sort of, it's like smoking. I think you probably have to take a more health-based approach. But again, I don't know. I don't know. It's not, I have no idea.
Do you think it dramatically changes the mental state of young people?
Yeah, I think you're probably like whatever, I don't know what the right word is, whatever like your hormones and everything. I mean, your brain doesn't develop until you're 25, right? And maybe women a little bit earlier, but it's probably not worth taking that risk.
So is it going to
be
for a
lot of young people, especially when you have things like schizophrenia and stuff? I think if you're like predisposed, early onset sort of occurs at around 20 to 25. So if you start taking those substances, then maybe you maximize your chance of, or increase your chance of getting it.
So is there going to be a new wave in say 5, 6, 7 years of people who are underdeveloped because of their use of recreational drugs like gear and?
Hard to say. I mean, I think you could probably make the argument for smartphones. I think that'd probably have the same net effect potentially.
I find that so interesting.
Attention deficit disorder, that's got to go through the roof.
I find it so interesting how we compare different addictions. Like alcohol is not looked at the same way marijuana is looked at, and marijuana is not looked at the same way cell phone usage is, which is looked differently at the amount we watch Netflix and and all these, which are addictions in their own right and all harmful in their own ways. They're in multiple different attributes of life. They could be harmful.
I went and did some running over at Stanford with their Stanford team, because there's a guy I knew there who's a fast 400 meter runner in the Olympics, and I had the fortune of meeting a bunch of execs from Google and Facebook, and they don't let their kids on devices. They don't let them. They don't let them on YouTube. Wow. They don't let them on iPads. Yeah. So that tells you something. That's like a big tell. You know what I mean? So that obviously internally they have.
Did
data.
they say why?
Yeah, because it affects their attention, like their ability to be attentive. Your attention, like your ability to pay attention to something, is in part directly correlated to your happiness. Like a wandering mind is like an unhappy mind. But I think it's the addiction side of things. Like kids get addicted to these games that kind of have the same colors and sounds as slot machines, right? So they get addicted to that and those hits of dopamine, and you get addicted to getting likes and these imaginary fucking internet points that everyone's competing on.
Yeah.
I think all of that goes away as well, by the way. Like I think, Facebook is Bebo.
Really?
Yeah.
Is something will replace it, or it will just go?
You hope so. Something healthier, I hope.
Is it on the way out now?
Surely. Right, I think like
if
they didn't buy Instagram, Facebook would be in big trouble.
I think Instagram's going to go before Facebook.
Really?
Because I think people.
That's a big
call.
That's a
That is
big
huge.
call.
It's a big call.
That's like a Gary Vee kind of call.
I reckon. I think they tried to do the right thing by removing the like feature, the whole you can't see how many likes this thing has. But I think people, not our generation, but I think the generation under us, so our children, Instagram won't be a thing, but Facebook will.
Facebook's trash. It's like seeing, like midnight TV,
but it's
adverts. It's just constant trash and memes.
So much more attributes
I feel like
to it than
Facebook's
Instagram.
a lot more personal though, and I think that's
so
why
bad.
that's why it's hung around, because you can talk to your grandma in South Africa, and you can talk to your uncle in Iceland, but on Instagram you don't have that like personal. You do, but you don't have that connection. Like you can't.
Instagram will die when the age of the influencer dies, which is coming. Like we talked about before.
Praise the Lord.
When the influencers, when people finally wake up and go,
no, I don't think
influencers
like will ever die, because
they have to.
No,
how many times have I seen fucking gummy bears that are good for my hair, and I'm like, I don't fucking want them.
Exactly.
Leave me alone.
I know.
Unfollow.
But there's a difference between those people and people who actually do extraordinary things, who have something authentic to say, and there are great products in the world. There's great products in the world, and there's great people in the world.
I follow them on Twitter,
and I think
Twitter's the superior social media.
Twitter is the best.
Yeah.
Love Twitter.
No one in New Zealand uses Twitter. It's so undercover.
In
America and UK, US and UK,
it's fantastic.
Everybody's on Twitter.
Because it's ideas centric.
Yeah.
It's ideas centric, which is what I like.
It's so good. And it's so short, it's quick, it's snappy.
Concise, yeah.
Anybody watching this, go on Twitter if you don't have one. It's so much better than Instagram. There's no influencers.
No influencers. There kind of are. You have like the Naval Ravikant type people.
Yeah, but it's...
all the VCs.
It's not your typical hey, buy this product. It's...
No, but I think there is a place. I think there is a market for people who are doing interesting things to pair with people who make great products. Like I'm not totally dismissive of that.
Yeah, it's got to fit though, right? Like,
it does.
I think today's stage of influencers is very like,
well, it has to fit because of this.
I'm a teenage male, but look at me. I'm sharing sugar bear hair care that does my hair. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, it's just we see through it straight away now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has to be a good fit. But I do think there is a fit for it. But it will change.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, because I think we talked about this, I think, on our first or second episode. The influencer, I think, is changing now, and you're not just someone with a lot of followers who post shit all the time. You're a YouTuber who makes great content, and you're now chucking in all your influencer brands, but it's so easy for a consumer to see because they know it's coming. And so they just tune out for that 10 seconds, right? So I'm thinking the likes of your David Dobrik's, who have their 4-minute video, and you know the first 30 seconds is all ad shit, so you just skip the 30 seconds, or you tune out. Or your Nout Boys. I'm not sure if you know who these guys are. Another bunch of YouTubers who drink and smoke and do all these different things. You know that in the middle they start talking about erection pills.
They do a pre-roll.
Yeah. You know that's sponsored, right? And you just tune out for that bit.
Yeah.
So I think influencers will change, and then Instagram will die because they've all moved to content creators. And I think Twitter will be the
So
superior race.
it's more about
Big call.
influencers are going to stay around, but the medium that they use to get their message out is changing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it started in black and white films, and it went to movies, and then it kind of changed to, I don't know, newspapers, and then went social, and now it's going content creation.
I mean, people are always going to pay attention to people who are like interesting, doing interesting things or extraordinary, right? And those people always have an incentive to make more money and like maximize their wealth, whatever you want to define that as. So I think there's always going to be some form of transaction going on between the people who are being viewed and the viewers, in some sort of like promotional material. But who knows? With Facebook, I would love like someone to go in and create a subscription-based model. No ads. Yeah, and better privacy.
Would you buy it?
Yeah,
How much would you
absolutely.
pay? How much would you get paid?
Well, I mean, you wouldn't need to pay. If you had the same scale as Facebook and it was $1 a month, you'd get, how many, like that'd be $1 billion company a month. No ads. Your privacy is protected. That'd just be so valuable.
Yeah.
Like whatever the
Privacy
opposite,
is
of,
the big thing,
whatever the
right?
opposite of Facebook is, I would pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, I'm just checking. I've checked out so much of online. Like, I'm just enjoying not looking at my phone so much more now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a conscious effort of mine as well over the past, like,
it's-
8 months. Is just how do you switch off? Like, my last hour before I go to bed, I switch off. All devices go off and I don't read or anything. It's time to be present. Grayson's the opposite. He's on his phone 24 hours a day.
Sliding in those DMs.
Hey, you gotta. It's the hustle, I love it. I was gonna find my.
You going back to something we did earlier in the rapid fire. You said you're happy now.
Yeah. 'Cause
Truly
I think-
happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like I try and practice being happy potentially. Like there's certainly like inconsistencies, like where I want to be great at like loads of different things, like running, for example. I did one half marathon, and then it's like now I have this idea that I could potentially be the best in the world at it just for fun, right? So you always have that drive to go and succeed and win at things. But I think being happy is just, that's a practice in many respects.
Weird. Over the last little while, when you've kind of gotten out of Paralympic running, where has I'm not actually sure where I'm trying to go with that question. I lost it. Metal, pull me up.
I'll pull it in because I think I know where you're going. Let's remove Paralympics from it. Let's say from the time you left running to now, what would have been your darkest day? So over those last kind of 5 years, I guess. I'm not sure when you left running, but
2 years ago.
okay. Last 2 years.
3 years. Yeah, 2 years ago. The darkest day. I don't have dark days. I just
Really?
don't. Yeah, tough days, but no dark days. I'll give you a story. Oh, I found out that I had a secret family in the Philippines.
Yeah.
That was
I see.
that was a surprise.
How does that go together? How did that?
That was a long night in Vegas.
That was a.
Yeah, Dad had a long night. Yeah, so that has been a big change to life. So I did like a 23andMe test, and it said that I had like a younger brother, and then I had a suspicion. Like I didn't really pay attention to it because like these things are really faulty. And I kind of just like, it was there in the back of my head, but I like ignored it. And also said I had like a mother-in-law. I was like, I definitely don't have a mother-in-law, but I had the suspicion that my dad might have a girlfriend. Yeah. And then when you like trying to secretly film your mates on Snapchat, I caught my dad secretly trying to film me, like while I was driving, like, but he's an old man, so he's like totally unsubtle, like he's going like that. And like, what's this guy doing? And then, turns out my dad, who's 60, has got a kid in the Philippines who's like 2 years old, and she's our age.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That'd probably been a big shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I walked around and called my dad a pedo for a pretty long period of time.
Wow.
That's actually.
Wait, so his girlfriend is our age?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So
I did
that
not
has
know
been
that.
like a big change.
Yeah.
And they like now all live in like
Understandably.
and they all now live in like my family home, and I have a little brother named Tyler. But like it was initially hard, and then I've sort of adjusted to it, and obviously I only care about the outcome of Tyler.
Yeah.
And he's super cute, and he's so much like me. So except he's got legs. I'm just like, oh, look at me, he's got legs. Yeah. Anyway, he's running around, but yeah, he's super cute. But yeah, that was crazy. And
That's
that
actually-
the reason I said that is a dark day is because you have this preconceived idea from someone that you really trust, which was my dad, and then you get this like massive curveball which comes in,
Did that make you question like trust and relationships?
Yeah,
and who to believe
absolutely,
and-
absolutely.
How did you get through that?
Come on, like it's like not that bad. You know what I mean? It's like
it's not bad, but it would have been like, what the fuck? Like next
Yeah.
time somebody says something, you're like, are you actually not who you say you are?
No,
but-
I'm not that. Look, I take the default that most people are good people.
Right.
Because I think otherwise society would just naturally fall
Yep.
apart. So I think that most people are good people. I think that people make mistakes in life. I don't even necessarily think my dad made a mistake. His mistake was like not being open and transparent and telling me that he'd got a fucking kid. But like, how'd I get through it? You know, it's life. At the end of the day, people do have curveballs. Like, you see articles now where people are finding out that they've got like brothers and sisters
Yeah.
and kids and everything around the world from doing these DNA tests. So in reality, it's like not that much of a shock. And when I look back, I'm like, of course this happened, because my dad worked globally. He worked in China and the Philippines for like 3/4 of the year. You know, he worked overseas. So he was a lonely guy after my mum died, you know.
Yeah.
Meets a young girl in Asia. She sees
Yeah, you can't.
nice,
blame-
really
you
nice
can't blame
guy,
the
and yeah, so it happens. Yeah,
Totally. If, you know, I just want to talk a little bit about, I guess, your experiences in mental health and
sure.
all that side of stuff. Like, give us a bit of a quick high-level summary of kind of your experiences, your life with the ups and the downs and what's come and what's not. And
Yeah, I get the sense now that, and it may not be for your age, but there's a lot of guys my age who have like an impending sense of doom.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, if it's a social media thing that everyone has, because we're in this sort of like weird social status game where everyone's trying to collect these social points. I don't know if that's what's brought this about, but I got a lot of friends who are suffering from anxiety, which kind of comes as a shock to me, because like life could never be better, right? For pretty much everyone. Like if you're a poor person born today, you're way better than King Charles II, 200 years ago. I don't know if that's an actual king, but whatever. Like you're better off today than at any other time, but for whatever reason, we've got some sort of impending crisis where a bunch of people feel absolutely miserable and we don't know why. My guess is it's like probably something habitual in relation to the rise of social media, because it sort of like tracks alongside that. But in my respects, like I've had challenges, but you know, I've come full circle where I used to think that you need to just like lean into the struggle a little bit, but now I'm like at the opposite end where I'm like, I actually think the solution is just getting really fucking hard. Like when life gets hard, I think just get way harder. That's my general sort of feeling towards it now, and that you should just work really hard to get yourself out of that and take control, because otherwise you're relying on external factors, whether it's medicine or whether it's, you know, people. You don't want to have that external locus of control. You want to have it internal. So I think
totally, I think it's perspective's a big game, right?
Yeah.
I read something the other day, funnily enough, on Instagram, and I think it was like, if you've got $10 in your pocket and no debt, you're richer than 85% of the world or something. Like you're in the top 80, you're in the top like 15% already.
Which
Just
is
because
insane.
you got no debt and you got $10 in your pocket.
But
like,
everything's comparative to like who you're around, right? So like
Totally.
you could be that, but in New Zealand you're broke. You're
Yeah.
broke and you're struggling to survive.
Yeah.
So that's where
how do
it comes
you
in.
stop comparing yourself to others?
I guess that's like a discipline, and I think that's something that you have to figure out for yourself and make like a mental commitment to paying less attention to what others think. I think it's an easy trapping to do, because I think it's probably natural. You're always looking for some sort of social consensus within a group. But yeah, who knows, man? I mean, I'm not like a philosopher or a guru. I really can't give anyone any decent advice but be themselves and
No,
and work
you've
hard.
given some.
Like,
you've
so
given
I'll
some
give
good
I'll
advice.
give you some like when the hardest point I think is probably when my mum died. Like I never talked about it with anyone, and I didn't really talk about it with her, and I didn't really understand what was going on even at 18. That was probably the hardest point, and probably running from my problems a little bit was not a good idea, which is when I started drinking and everything. So I don't know. I think if you are suffering from depression and anxiety, I think maximize like all the values of health and wealth, and that will by and large solve most people's problems. You know what I mean? Taking more control for yourself.
Did you have a core group of people and friends?
Oh man, I've got awesome friends. I got like the best friends. Like by
Yeah.
default, I was like the luckiest. I'm like one of the luckiest people. I'm sure you guys have great
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
as well. And it's not like my friends are, you know, aspiring to be world champions in anything necessarily. Like, and I don't think
They're
that's
just good people.
just good people, man.
Yep.
Good, honest, hardworking people. And I feel like that's all you want out of a friend. Like, I don't care if you're a tradesman
100%.
or you're a freelancer or you're an athlete. Who cares? Like, are you fun to hang out with and are you trustworthy and a good person?
Yep.
Then
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
people are
pretty much what you
awesome.
need.
I love
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about this much with Matt or anybody, but when I was young, I lost my mum.
Yeah.
When I was 5, and there was
To
it was quite sometimes brain aneurysm.
a brain
So,
aneurysm. So
yeah.
completely out of
Completely
the
out
blue.
of it. One, it was. I still remember the day. It was. I went to school. She dropped me off at school. It was at school athletics. School athletics that day. Came home, won a medal or something. And when I got home, my grandma when I was about to leave school, my grandma picked me up, and I was like, "This is weird. I mean, maybe she's coming over for dinner or anything." Got home, ambulances were there. She went to Auckland Hospital, and then I think it was like a week later she passed.
Right.
But what does that do for somebody for a guy? I guess is a good situation to put us both into. What is that? How does that mentally like fuck with you? Losing a female.
It's got to be massive, right?
Yeah.
And I think it might even, I like, not that you should ever compare yardsticks, but I think that even might be harder because you've got that whole period of your life where you have such like a key person missing and gone. I mean, that must have just been extraordinarily hard.
Yeah,
Right? It's like hard. It's hard to ratify it in your own mind and make sense of it. That's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that, like, why is it her and not like? I mean, why did it have to happen? You know, it's one of those things that shit just doesn't need to happen. You know,
It doesn't need to happen.
There's
doesn't
so
need to
many
happen.
things in the world that just don't need to happen.
Yeah.
And then obviously the forefront of your mind was, why fucking this one? You know, but it spins you. But I think there's a lot of things that happen that are so shit in your life that they make you who you are. And I think you'll probably know that.
Couldn't agree more. That's like one of the like my neighbor just died the other day of a brain aneurysm, and it's just life is so short. We're on this little blue planet for a very short period of time, and you never know when you're gonna go. So it's like be really nice to people, have fun, do what you want to do, like optimizing for being yourself. But yeah, when stuff like that happens, it fucks with you so much. I had a friend named Curly, shout out to Curly, who his mum passed away when he was, I think, 7 from bowel cancer. And like, I know that like when he hit his teens, that was sort of when he became really aware that he had his mum missing. And like, it's just, you see it in everyone who deals with loss, like how hard that is for people to ratify.
Yeah.
How did it, what happened with you? That's such a weird
Yeah.
one at a young age because you
Yeah.
also don't really understand the world. So it'd be even harder to make sense of.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I guess at that age you don't really understand. You know that you're different when you're going to parent-teacher interviews with just your dad, when everybody else is like mums and dads.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't hit you till when people talk about your parents and they think it's socially bad that they're like, oh shit, I just asked some guy that his mum died.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Couldn't agree more.
When you're like 12, 13 and they're like, oh, when are your parents picking you up or something like that? And you're like, oh, my dad's coming to like pick me up. And oh, what about your mum? And it's like, and then you have to, oh shit,
Yeah.
you know? And that's when it's like, it's quite hard to, like for me, it's quite easy to talk to, but for somebody taking that, it's quite hard for them. And then that's when they kind of treat you like, oh shit, you know?
Yeah, which is the worst.
Or
That's
your mom jokes.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow.
I really never really cared about those.
See, I go hard on them. Like
Yeah,
in my
you-
sets,
yeah.
I make jokes about my mum dying from
Yeah,
cancer.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
that's what I feel like. It's annoying when people take that route and they
Yeah.
almost give you like the default sympathy, like
Yeah,
avoid the
sympathy.
conversation. They almost don't. It's like they're almost. They're not really doing anything. So obviously not trying to upset you. They're not trying to offend you. But it's like you can't handle it. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can handle talking about tough things,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like it is life.
So,
We are probably built in to like deal with these things, but
Yeah.
it's super awkward.
Yeah.
And that's when you like start thinking about it a little bit
Yeah, and
more.
that's, I mean, as unfortunate as like, I wouldn't think about the situation for maybe a week, 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I'm in bed, I'm like, fuck, I haven't thought about it for 2 weeks, 1 week.
Yeah,
And
it's so weird.
Yeah.
I also feel like if you have something really good happen or you have something really bad happen,
yes.
you can't be
When
like
it
a
rains, it
mama's
pours.
boy
Yes.
and you can't go to your mum.
Yeah.
That's like
So-
the big thing that I miss.
I'm
I mean, I had a good stepmom who came into our family pretty quick, and she raised me to be kind of who I am today too, with my dad. So.
and you've turned out great. So
Oh,
shout out to her.
I mean,
He's turned out all right.
All right, yeah. We
Slightly
put him up too high.
It's an
Slightly
interesting,
subpar.
interesting proposition as well, right? I'm in the same lake, different boat. So I grew up without a dad.
Right.
Didn't pass away, just wasn't in my life from the minute I was born.
Right.
So he's not even on my birth certificate. My
Oh.
birth certificate's just my mum.
Never met him?
I had. So this is where I'm in weird boat, right? So didn't know him till I was 12, I think. Knew it was in my life for 2 years, disappeared again. Knew him again, came back into my life when I was like 16, disappeared when I was 18. Don't talk to him now for the last 2 years.
Is he like the inconsistent dad who came back for the wrong reasons?
I don't know.
You don't know because you haven't talked to him since you were
Yeah,
at an
like,
age
it
where you
was-
feel like you could ask him hard
Yeah,
questions.
it was always like 16 to 18. It was more just like, don't really want to talk to you about these things because like
Right.
I grew up with my mum and whatever you say, she's always right to me because
Right.
she was there and you weren't.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
and it's that weird feeling. But I know what you mean. It was always weird, right? You'd be at school and they'd be like, "Oh, when's mum and dad coming?" And I'd be like, "Oh, my mum's coming." "Oh, what about your dad?" And I don't know him.
Yeah.
And it's same lake, right? You're like, "Oh,
he
my
might show
mum."
up though.
Yeah.
He might show up. We don't know.
Yeah,
we'll give it
yeah.
a couple months. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like same sort of boat, right? You're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, my mum's passed or whatever," and they're like, "Oh," and you're like,
Yeah.
"I don't know my dad," and they're like, "Oh," and you're like, "I don't care. I don't know him." Different boats, but same sort of lake.
No,
right?
it
Like, it's-
absolutely is. Because, I
Yeah.
mean, especially I think not having a dad, I think that's a big thing for young men is like not having that male structure in the house as well.
Yeah.
I
And I had an older sister too.
and one of the things that like I've realized as you get on is like everyone has these stories. Everyone.
Yep.
You know, it's like how people respond to those events sort of like
Yep.
dictates how they turn out as individuals. And you guys obviously dealt with them well. But yeah, it's people. Some people are just fucking inconsistent. You know what I mean?
I think you summed it up very well, and I think there's a lot of outside negativity and a lot of outside events you can't control.
Yeah.
All you can do is optimize your own life, have gratitude every day for being alive, and be kind to everybody. You don't judge a book by a cover. It's very cliche, but literally, like, you have no idea what's behind the skin, and you don't know what they've been through, and those are it. So
Yeah.
imagine if you could just know everything about somebody as soon as you see them. Just everything.
fuck, that would be cool.
I would not want people to be able to do that to
Well,
me. Oh man,
to
that
a
would
degree,
be bad.
like-
Oh my
no.
god, Liam, you did what? No.
Awesome. Now, thank you so much for joining us today, Liam. It's been a one
Happy day.
hell of a freaking
I've
chat.
been feeling like I thought I might die during
Really?
like 40 minutes.
Just
Yeah,
a
I'm
little bit
struggling to
dusty.
be alive.
Just
It's hot in
drinking
here.
some water. Just,
I'm dehydrated. Yeah, it's tough.
Now we're going to finish off with our 3-3-3, where we ask you 3 wins and losses of the week, and as well as 3 goals for this upcoming week. So the 3 wins and losses are obviously the last week because it's Monday. So
The 3 wins and losses
3
of-
wins and losses.
From last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Losses, diet just went out the window over the weekend. That's a big one. Blew a bunch of money at the UFC. Drinking, that's another big one because I like 2 things that I've been trying to be really good on. Wins, smashed my PB in the half marathon,
Nice.
making pretty like good steps in terms of what I do next career wise. Another loss and win. I'm going to count a win as actually going to the UFC because that was a ton of fun. And occasionally,
hectic.
having a big blowout is like the best thing
Yeah.
ever, even though I'm not much of like a party person. And then another failure. I don't know. Don't care.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, I
Don't
don't care.
care. You're up
Failing on being
today.
able to bring up that point. Next, what is it? Do I do 3 more?
3
Is that
goals
3
for
goals?
next week.
3 goals
next
this week. So I'm doing a bunch of gigs in Christchurch this week, so hopefully they go
Nice.
well. So that's goal for this week. Smash a bunch of training, very specific training for half marathons, and also emceeing a gig. So I hope that one goes
Awesome.
well too.
Now, where do they find you for your show in Christchurch? Where they get
You know
tickets?
what? Because my stuff's so dark, I'm not even like promoting it.
You're not
but
even gonna
yeah,
promote it.
yeah, no.
Just gonna have
I'm
a
gonna
bit
get
of fun.
cancelled.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying earlier. You get cancelled nowadays. Cancel
Yeah.
culture is like a death sentence. There's
Is
no
it?
like retribution. Like at least you're like a prison sentence. You do your time and then you're up. You get cancelled. You're done. Your
Yeah.
friends don't talk to you. The media kills you. It's just you can't get a job.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. You'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see.
You'll get cancelled, but you'll be fine. I heard
Yeah.
some of the jokes. You'll definitely get cancelled, but
Yeah,
you'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
coming. It's
You'll be
coming.
fine.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week. We'll have our logo maybe jazzed up a bit fix our cease and
Our cease and desist.
Cease and
which
desist.
we
That's
might.
so insane.
Yeah.
Whoever did
But-
that, you're insane.
We'll talk about a bit more next week, maybe.
Yeah.
But same time, same place, 2:30 next Monday. See you there. Cheers,
Cheers,
Liam.
guys.
Peace.